Sound check. Good afternoon, everyone. Your Excellencies, colleagues, friends, thank you very much for attending this very important session on the rights of older people at the Palais des Nations. Thank you very much for those many who are joining online. And from the outset, really, thank you very much for all the technicians, for the NGO liaison unit of the Palais des Nations, and for the interpreters for facilitating the interpretation into French to reach our French-speaking audience, in particular in Switzerland and in Geneva, that have been extremely supportive for us. I don't know you, but the UN days and the UN of older persons, to me, it's not really a commemoration. It's an opportunity for recognition and for action. There are so many dire situations in so many fields around the world that we have really very little to celebrate. But we can evaluate and we can take action. This is really a very important time in Geneva. It has been perceived as a starting point for many. Many of you participated in activities in Kenya, in Nairobi, in the NGO preparation for the Summit of the Future. And we were a little bit concerned, in particular when addressing issues of older people. I thought, and we thought, many of us, we thought that the issues on future generations will be addressing only issues of young people. And in Kenya, we were optimistic because in many of the sessions, young people said, wait a minute, we are the older people of the future. So whatever you're discussing concerns us. But of course, you have witnessed what happened in New York, and the story is completely different. It's not really the same. Beyond the almost heroic efforts of many NGOs, of many member states, of many ups and downs in the drafting of text and documents, older peoples are almost not mentioned. Just one little mention in a little annex. So we are in a really very important moment after the decision of closing the open-ended working group on older persons in New York and the resolution of the General Assembly. Actually, we have a mandate that we think we have a responsibility to follow up the agenda and to make of this new day of recognition a day of action, start a new set of actions that will make concrete the right of older persons in the world. So I hope that at the end of this session, we will all be convinced that there is a way forward, that we can all contribute, and that this is a new, fresh start. We should not be pessimistic. I think there's a new opening that in front of us to start a new way. So to face this, we have prepared this commemoration of the UN Day of Older People in three parts. First, with two ambassadors who have been at the forefront of the lobbying and the actions on older people's rights. Then we were going to have a panel discussion, and then we have very short interventions. But we will start with three important messages, really very short, but I think that they are powerful. I hope that you will agree with me after hearing them. One, of course, is of the High Commissioner, Mr. Volker Turk. The second one is by Claudia Mahler, that you all know, the independent expert. And the third one is of an older person herself. So if the technique is all right, we can start, and we are extremely happy and honored to have a message by the High Commissioner of Human Rights.
The number of people aged 65 years and older will likely, Excellencies, colleagues, friends, by 2050, the number of people aged 65 years and older will likely exceed 1.6 billion, 16% of the global population. This is a triumph of human progress in healthcare, living conditions, and social development. But it also highlights just how important it is that we address the profound challenges facing older people. Today, on the International Day of Older Persons, we celebrate the incredibly rich contribution that older persons make to our societies. Older persons have an essential perspective, looking to the future in our search for a more peaceful, more sustainable, and more equal world. And so while today represents a celebration, let it also mark a clarion call to action, a reminder of our shared responsibility to uphold the dignity and human rights of older persons, and a warning of the ageism they experience every day, of the unique discrimination they face in accessing healthcare, employment, and social services, of their exclusion, intentionally or unintentionally, from decision-making, or as a result of technological progress, heightening their loneliness and isolation. My office is deeply committed to this issue, and together with the NGO Committee on Aging and other important stakeholders, we are making progress. There is growing support from member states to create an internationally legally binding instrument on the rights of older persons. The consensus of member states at the 14th session of the Open-Ended Working Group on Aging and the subsequent General Assembly resolution requesting the Human Rights Council to continue these discussions and start drafting a UN convention are pivotal steps. We have a clear vision. Now we must turn it into reality, and my office is ready to work with all of you to make this happen. You have been at the forefront of advocating for the rights of older people. Now I urge you to intensify your efforts to ensure more advocacy, more voices, more action. Let us seize this golden opportunity to reaffirm our commitment to the principles of equality, dignity, and respect for all, regardless of age. Let us work together to ensure that older persons are valued and included. We will all be better for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. High Commissioner. I don't know if you noticed the optimistic mood of the High Commissioner, but also there were two words that really catch my attention. First, start drafting. I think it's important that we start drafting and we discuss a legally binding instrument, in essence, not just an idea. I think starting the process of drafting is really important, and it was mentioned by him. Also, the importance of working together. And now, of course, the High Commissioner has the responsibility and guidance in many rights. But now we have the message from Claudia Mahler, the independent expert on the rights of older people. And she has been working not only at the global level, but at the national level, at the local level, with limited resources. I think that it's really important that she, which is a very important part of the mechanism and of the network on the rights of older people, she has the right support from all of us, but also the right means. So now we'll hear from her, Claudia Mahler.
Honored to address you on this special occasion as independent expert on the enjoyment of all human rights by older persons. Ever since the International Day of Older Persons was first initiated worldwide on October 1st, 1991, new generations have joined the older persons who initially marked this day. With each passing year, the population of older persons is becoming more diverse and heterogeneous, reflecting the dynamic nature of aging around the world. The world's population is aging at an unprecedented rate. By 2050, the number of people aged 65 and over is expected to more than double, making this demographic a significant part of our global community. As life expectancy continues to increase, the way we approach aging must evolve. This demographic shift brings with it challenges and opportunities that require all our attention. During my recent country visits, for which I am deeply grateful, I was once again reminded how the persistence of ageism and age discrimination continues to hinder older persons' access to essential services and their full participation in society and all spheres of life. For older persons facing multiple and intersecting forms of discrimination, existing vulnerabilities are exacerbated and reinforced. The current human rights framework is fragmentary, and the commitment of member states is not sufficient to protect the rights of older persons. If we fail to address these issues on a global scale, older persons will face disproportionately negative impacts on their human rights due to the anticipated future challenges, including climate change, digitalization, emerging conflicts, and pandemics. This year, the Human Rights Council has designated October 1st under the theme, "A Crucial Time for the Rights of Older Persons." This theme underscores the urgencies of addressing the issues of older persons are facing today and in the future. It also resonates with a message highlighted in one of this year's reports that I worked on as independent expert, which explores the human rights of future generations of older persons. The actions we take today to address persisting challenges will provide significant benefits for our future. As we consider the way forward, we must ask ourselves, why has support for the human rights not yet been fully mainstreamed at all levels? The development of a legally binding international instrument to protect the rights of older persons would be a significant step forward. This International Day of Older Persons is a call to action. It serves as a reminder that the human rights of future generations cannot remain overlooked. It is high time that governments take ageism seriously and stand up to combat ageism with legal, political, and social tools. Civil society organizations must receive more support to work with older persons in different settings on an adequate basis. Inclusion is one of the missing links to foster the visibility of older persons. These are essential steps towards creating a more inclusive and age-friendly society. However, these steps are only part of a broader effort needed by all stakeholders to prepare for the challenges ahead. Indeed, now is a crucial time to act. The future enjoyment of all human rights by older persons and by our society as a whole depends on choices we make today. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mrs. Claudia Mahler. You noted the word urgency. It's the urgency to take action. We must take action urgently. And just one word. When we talk about future generations, something that has came out in several preparatory meetings, is that we shouldn't think about future generations as a Peter Pan scenario when nobody gets old, or a Jose Saramago novel where nobody gets old and nobody dies. Not facing reality, it's a problem. Not facing reality is an issue. And the reality is that the world population is aging. We have to face it, and we have to face it urgently. Now, I would like to present the subject herself, an old person of the year 2060. Please, Dr. Video.
And I'm 11 years old. Today, as we gather to celebrate the United, our future, our rights. Hello everyone, my name is Elisa and I'm 11 years old. Today, as we gather to celebrate the United Nations Day of Older Persons, we recognize and honor an incredibly important part of mankind, our older generations, like my grandparents, and one day my parents, and even me. While we children have special rights recognized by the world, it's crucial that older people have their rights recognized too. Now is the perfect time to take our promises and turn them into real actions. We need a set of rules that everyone must follow to make sure older people's rights are protected and respected. Older people aren't just others, they're us in the future, so protecting them means protecting our future selves. They're not separated from us, they're where we are headed. That's why today, more than any other day, you and the adults of today should commit to making sure that older people's rights everywhere are respected and cherished. Let's use this day to start making a real difference. I call on today's adults, governments, NGOs, all actors of the United Nations to work together and take the necessary actions to make sure that growing old is celebrated and legally protected today and every day. Do it for us, the children, and your grandchildren, who are the older people of the future.
Well, that was my granddaughter. And if I could wish something, is that she grows old, very old, healthy, happy, and with her rights respected. So I think we have to have that in mind. It's not me with my gray hair, it's them, it's them. So now to have some opening statements and really set the stage for our panel discussion, it is my privilege to invite Her Excellency, Mrs. Anita Pipan, Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary, Permanent Representative of Slovenia to the United Nations Office at Geneva, to share her thoughts on how we should move forward.
Thank you very much, Alejandro. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear participants. First of all, let me thank the organizers, the NGO Committee on Aging Geneva, for your leadership. And I also like to thank all the other stakeholders that are with us today, celebrating today's day and committing to our common path forward. As it has been said, older persons are the fastest growing part of the population worldwide. Population aging is therefore poised to become one of the most significant social transformations of the 21st century, with implications for nearly all sectors of society. This is why we need to make sure that we will age with dignity and rights. As High Commissioner for Human Rights noted, we must highlight the important contributions that older people make to society. In order to enable them to participate fully in social, economical, cultural, and political life on equal basis without discrimination, we need to move away from thinking about old age in terms of deficits that create needs towards a rights-based approach to aging. Older persons are rights holders, not only beneficiaries, and it is time to change the narrative in this regard. Stronger promotion, protection, and fulfillment of human rights of older persons and the fight against ageism benefits not only older persons themselves, but society as a whole. We therefore must question stereotypes, biases, and make our societies age inclusive. Ladies and gentlemen, Slovenia too warmly welcomes the recent adoption of the General Assembly resolution, which calls for a serious consideration of the recommendations adopted by the open-ended working group at its 14th session, including the development of an international legally binding instrument to promote, protect, and ensure the recognition and realization of all human rights for older persons on equal basis. A convention on the rights of older persons can create a paradigm shift in our societies. A convention will view older persons as rights holders and codify the rights of older persons, recognizing the specific challenges related to aging. It will serve as a tool for both empowerment and protection. The General Assembly resolution also urged the relevant United Nations bodies to further consider the recommendations. Slovenia, together with the core group of the rights of older persons and other partners, is committed to ensuring that this issue receives the attention it deserves here in Geneva in the Human Rights Council. I'm very happy to see representatives of various United Nations agencies among the participants of today's panel discussion. In order to contribute effectively to better protection and promotion of the rights of older persons, we need the widest possible consensus of the international community to make our vision of human rights of older persons into reality. Ladies and gentlemen, I do hope that today's discussion will inspire and mobilize further action in promoting and ensuring human rights of older persons of today and the next generations. Older persons must enjoy their human rights and choices on an equal basis with others. I thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador, for your inspiring comments. I think that we really are willing to put our effort, our enthusiasm, and will together to move forward the agenda as from today. And now it is my privilege and my honor to invite His Excellency Carlos Mario Foradori, representative of Argentina to the United Nations Office at Geneva, who has also been at the forefront of the lobbying and actions for the rights of older persons. Please, Ambassador Foradori.
Thank you, Alejandro. Thank you, Anita, and thank to all the organizers. I really have to congratulate for this special event, and then for once again inviting Argentina to take part in this celebration. The annual commemoration of the International Day of Older Persons represents an opportunity to highlight the challenges they face in the protection and enjoyment of their human rights, to shed light on the persistent lack of adequate protection mechanism and on the existing gaps in policies and programs to address these challenges. But we must not only be mindful of what is lacking. This celebration is also, and above all, a call to action. I could not agree more with the title of the event Geneva calls a pivotal moment for older persons' rights. It seems to us that indeed this year marks the beginning of a new chapter, a crucial chapter in the work of Geneva, and in particular of the Human Rights Council in the promotion and protection of the human rights of older persons. Of course, we have already achieved important results in Geneva. The path we have walked together, states, civil society, and the Office of the High Commissioner recognizes the important milestones in advancing the rights of older persons. Among them, as we all know, in September 2013, the Human Rights Council established the mandate of the independent expert on the enjoyment of all human rights by older persons and adopted two substantive resolutions in 2018 and 2023. I can proudly say that Argentina has been a committed and relevant actor in all these milestones. These developments occurred in parallel with the work carried out in New York by the open-ended working group in aging of the General Assembly, chaired by Argentina since 2010, with a mandate to increase the protection of the human rights of older persons, examining the current international framework on rights of older persons and identify possible deficiencies in the best way to correct them, including studying the feasibility of the new instrument and measure. And when I spoke of a new chapter, I was referring precisely to the fact that following the conclusion of the work of the working group last May, and the adoption of the recommendations it sent to the PGA regarding the identification of possible gaps in the protection of the human rights of older persons and how best to address them, the Human Rights Council is called to take up the torch and to translate those recommendations into concrete actions. Among others, the working group recommended member states in addressing possible gaps in the protection of the human rights of older persons to consider an international legally binding instrument to promote, protect, and ensure the recognition and the realization of all human rights of older persons. It also recommended to address the human rights of older persons in relevant multilateral forums, including in the Human Rights Council, with a view to providing specific and appropriate safeguards at the international level for the rights of older persons. The Human Rights Council has the expertise, the focus, and the sensitivity to turn the health of knowledge produced by the working group in these 14 years into tangible tools to bridge this protection gap. States and civil society, with the invaluable support of the Office of the Human Commissioner, are in an ideal position to move forward. While the increasing longevity is a manifestation of the progress achieved in human development and health over the last decades, the rapid demographic shift has also shed light on the lack of adequate protection mechanism and on the existing gaps in policies and programs to address the situation of older persons. On this International Day of Older Persons, I invite you to assume the historic role that we are called to play. Rest assured that Argentina is fully committed to do its part. We have an imbalanced equation, and it is our common obligation is to set it back to a human equilibrium. The number of older persons aged 65 and over is projected to double to 1.5 billion in 2050. By 2050, 1 in 6 people in the world will be aged 65 or over. The paradigm of progress, development, growth, on many occasions are not applied to the older persons. Their visibility is fading away along with a lifetime as a candle that is about to extinguish. Our common responsibility is to trade this for a shining torch that illuminates their path, focusing to their future through planning and implementing the best possible policies, with the purpose that the older persons start thinking more about their future and about their projects as opposed to remember their history and their past. For all those who only see life through the prism of supply and demand, investment, inflation, growth of the GDP, or the interest rate, it is important to remind them that the older people only see that the clock is ticking and their future is mostly related to demanding love, investing their time in valuable and spiritual assets, in the growth of their own sentiments, and in the interest in enjoying the rest of their life. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador, and thank you for reminding us the importance of concrete actions and reminding us once more the importance of the moment that we are and the task and the responsibility that we are assuming now. Geneva is the place. What will be discussed, what will be addressed, what will be agreed in Geneva will have an impact all over the world, in millions of people all over the world. This is not just it will not be a side event, nor will be a document. It will have a concrete impact on the lives of everybody. Now, with this, we will start the section that we will call the panel discussion with initial interventions in which we are going to see concrete actions that the different panelists have taken in their own countries or in their own responsibilities to tackle the issue of older persons. Of course, we're not starting from scratch. Many things have been done, and as the High Commissioner mentioned, there has been advance, but there's still much to do. So now it is my privilege to invite Her Excellency Francisca Elizabeth Mendez Escobar, Permanent Representative of Mexico to the United Nations Office at Geneva, to share with us her perspective on the importance of the approach of rights-based approach on the issues of older persons. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Alejandro. Good afternoon, everybody. Dear Excellency, Ambassador of Slovenia, Ambassador of Argentina, and Ambassador of Dominican Republic, and dear colleagues, dear panelists as well. It's an honor for me to be here. I was joking with my colleagues that we always are promoting and protecting the human rights of children, persons with disability, and at some point we have to protect our own human rights as older persons. Well, on this International Day of Older Persons, Mexico reaffirms its commitment to advancing the rights and dignity of older persons globally. This day serves as a powerful reminder of our obligation to respect, protect, and fulfill the rights of older persons in all their diversity. Mexico firmly believes that placing care and support systems at the heart of our approach is crucial for ensuring the dignity, autonomy, independence, and well-being for older persons.
These systems must be grounded on a human rights perspective that recognizes older persons as active rights holders, not passive beneficiaries. A human rights-based approach to care and support considers the life cycle of both care and support providers and recipients and must be gender responsive, age sensitive, and disability inclusive. Central to this approach is fostering decision-making by older persons themselves, which connects directly to legal capacity, an area where Mexico has made significant advances. We have recognized the full legal capacity of older persons, moving away from substituted decision-making towards supported decision-making frameworks that respect autonomy. But much more needs to be done. The WHO Global Report on Ageism states that 1 in 2 persons are ageist against older persons. In other words, nearly half of us, as you have already mentioned. It is therefore of utmost importance to address the lack of knowledge about older persons' rights, as this leads to approaches that perpetuated dependency, age-based discrimination, and violence. Furthermore, older persons represent a heterogeneous population where many face not only ageism, but also other intersecting forms of discrimination. In this regard, Mexico is proud to lead some important initiatives. Let me briefly refer to some of them. We co-chair the Global Alliance for Care, launched as part of the Generation Equality Forum, which addresses the unequal distribution of care and support work, often falling on women, including older women. At the Human Rights Council, Argentina, Spain, Iceland, and Mexico presented Resolution 54/6 on the centrality of care and support from a human rights perspective, co-sponsored by 50 countries and adopted by consensus. It explicitly recognized the unique challenges that older persons face in accessing quality health support, long-term care, and support, palliative care, and accessibility. In 2023, we ratified the Inter-American Convention on Protecting the Human Rights of Older Persons. And we have highlighted the positive and crucial impact of the Intergovernmental Working Group of Aging. However, much remains to be done. Existing frameworks fall short in fully addressing the unique challenges faced by older persons, creating as a gap in their protection. We call for a comprehensive, legally binding international instrument for the human rights of older persons, motivated by the firm conviction that these rights are not negotiable. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ambassador, and thank you for reminding us the role that Mexico has played in ratifying so many conventions, which really gives us an example. It doesn't hurt. It only brings good things and good developments. It really gives a path to follow our efforts. So thank you very much, Ambassador. Now, we're going to move to special aid agency that the name of our panelist, the name of her title mentions the essence of what we're discussing. I have the privilege to give the floor to Mrs. Alana Margaret Offices, who is the head of the Unit of Demographic Change and Healthy Aging of the World Health Organization. Alana, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So it's fantastic to be here. What a great day to celebrate. I really wanted to talk about a report that the UN produced. So UNDESA, WHO, UNFPA, and OHCHR. You've already heard about it. It was the first global report on ageism, which we released in 2021. And that report pulls together the best available evidence on the prevalence of ageism, on its determinants, on what its impact is, but also what works to address it. And we've already heard a little bit from Ambassador Mendez Escobar, but I think it's worth reiterating. How many people around the world are ageist against older people? 1 in 2, 50%. Half of the world's population. Just let that sink in. Half of us are ageist, yeah? And it has incredibly far-reaching impacts on our physical health, on our mental health, but also on our social well-being. And it intersects and exacerbates other forms of disadvantage, whether it's related to your sex, race, or disability. And it takes a really heavy economic toll on us as individuals, but also on our societies. But the overarching message is really optimistic. We can combat ageism. There are 3 things that work. Policy and law, it's important for this conversation, educational interventions, and intergenerational, bringing generations together. And I want to talk about policy and law because this is an important topic of conversation. The report says that it's an affordable strategy, yeah? That it works against ageism on any age groups, yeah? So it benefits all of us, yeah? That they're really important because they provide the framework, yeah? That we can evaluate proposals and activities against those human rights frameworks. And it's also can be achieved. It can be achieved by either adopting new instruments at the local, regional, or national level, or modifying our existing instruments that permit age discrimination. But of course, national policies and laws or local policies and laws without enforcement mechanisms, so without teeth, are really quite ineffectual. So we need those enforcement mechanisms as well. And we've already heard about steady progress that's happening around national legal and policy provisions. But around the world, we know that the scope and coverage is really uneven. So we need to develop those protections, yeah, that also address the intersectional and intersectional and cumulative disadvantage that we know relates in terms of age and disability and gender. Maybe, I mean, I think one of the things from WHO, so in terms of whether we need a legally binding instrument, I defer to member states. And as WHO, we take our leadership from member states. But if you ask me what the science says, what the evidence says about whether we need a legally binding instrument, the evidence is clear. We're a technical organization. The evidence says that one of the 3 most effective interventions for addressing ageism is policy and law. So from a technical perspective, we would very much support and be keen to support the development of a UN Convention on the Rights of Older Persons. Thank you, Ella.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for reminding us that there is scientific evidence that we can support all our activities. It's just that in climate change, there are the believers and the non-believers, but the evidence is there, and we have to base our activities in that. And now, I would like to introduce my former chief of the ILO, which is one of my favorite persons. This is the person that you would like to sit on a long flight or in a waiting room because you will learn so much things. And he has a very vast experience in adopting standards and recommendations. And what I have learned from him is that it's not a straight line. You have to go to different ways and put different things together to get a standard or a recommendation adopted. So, Kari, with your experience, can you share with us what would be the path that we should follow? What would be your recommendations?
Well, thank you. Thank you, Alejandro. You know, the ILO, the International Labour Organization, was set up in 1919, primarily as a body to produce international labor standards. In the process, it has become clear that standard setting work presumes research, statistics, policy, expert discussions, training, and technical assistance and cooperation. However, any such action has to be underpinned by clear standards. Almost in any resolution or declaration that we see these days, we see regular references to gender, race, religion, ethnic origin, status, migrants, refugees, health and disability, sexual orientation, and age. However, with the notable exception of the lower age bracket, children and youth, the references to age are seldom followed up by concrete normative action. The Universal Declaration on Human Rights does not mention age, neither does the ILO's Discrimination Convention, number 111. This, no doubt, is also due to the demographics of the late 1940s and 1950s. Age starts to feature increasingly in discussions and instruments when we come to the current century. But while age is not mentioned in all instruments, it is generally accepted to be associated with serious and widespread discrimination. The WHO has noted that discrimination on the basis of age may be a more extensive and pervasive phenomenon than those of racism or sexism, which both have generated and continue to generate a lot of activity, including standard setting. What would be the aim of a standard? Firstly, there is a void to be filled. We have specific dedicated instruments and follow-up mechanisms on gender, disability, racism, ethnic origins, migration, and in the question of age, youth. Starting with the standards of minimum age to employment and policies to deal with youth employment. We have quite specific instruments on the transition of younger persons into employment. A week ago, the UN Summit for the Future also suggested a new standard for promoting young people, an equivalent approach to the exit from full-time work is not there. We have a general understanding of the costs of aging in different forms, and we have numerous institutional arrangements, mostly related to the effects of degrading health. But we lack a proper analysis on the economic and social effects of aging throughout the human life cycle. It is generally accepted that there is a link between old age, poverty, and the obstacles to achieving sustainable development goals. For a variety of reasons, much of the issues of aging still remain invisible or only partially understood. We have no international legal benchmark or underpinning for eliminating the stereotypical attitudes and consequent action on older age. Arguments against the standard can also be made. The definition of ageism and old age is elusive. But is it really more vague than that of other, more established rights? One could also argue that it would be better to first try to work on attitudes before moving to standards. This is an argument you often hear. But the truth of human rights law and practice is that attitudes do not change if they are not underpinned by a standard. And this is the experience of the ILO. It seems to me that the objective of a new standard is clear enough. Firstly, aiming at low-end policies, that is what the state can do, with its powers. Specific issues are long-term and palliative care. Besides physical institutions, the case can be made for such arrangements as ombudsmen or other special bodies and procedures, with also effective redress possibilities. The participation of aged persons in both collective and individual decisions concerning them is imperative. Facilitating the participation of older people in elections, for instance, is a key issue of democracy itself. In the case of aging, it is necessary also to go much deeper than the institutional dimension. Not only the interpersonal or social dimension, but also the internal effects of older age on people themselves need to be reached in one way or another. The obstacles to access to care can be social attitudes, access to technology, communication, which increasingly govern the provision of healthcare, and simply a lack of encouragement that age is not a fatality which limits personal decision-making ability and rights. While the minimum age to employment can roughly be quantified, maximum age cannot. This part of legislation and policy has to be seen together with policies on pensions and other social benefits, starting with the need to guarantee a sufficient minimum income after full active working life. Provision should also be made for emergencies such as pandemics, armed conflicts, internal displacement, and refugees on the principle of no one should be left behind. A standard should include also parameters for information and research, but most importantly, it should spell out obligations and methods of supervision by treaty bodies with inputs through reporting mechanisms, including complaints, with rules on who is empowered to bring up an issue and how it will be treated. A standard without follow-up is not much more than pious wishes. Just to conclude, I would like to note that it's important to reflect how to proceed towards a standard. Well, experience has shown that someone needs to produce a draft. Otherwise, the discussion is abstract and goes in circles. And please remember, there always is much power in a first draft. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kari, for reminding us all the things that we have not done that are still pending. And we can claim that we didn't know, just like in climate change. So we didn't know that we were burning the earth, but now we know, so we must change that. And we didn't know that ageism was embodied in everything that we do. Now we know, and we have to change it, and we have the power to change it. And you highlighted something that is really very important. When we're talking about legally binding international document to protect the rights of older people, it's not just a legal instrument, it's the legal instrument with all the add-ons and instruments around that make it really become a reality in the life of every people. And something that we discussed previously that was not mentioned now, it's also not only promoting the effective access of older people to their human rights, but also eliminating the obstacles. We have to eliminate the obstacles as well. Thank you very much, Kari. Now, we're going to turn to the UNFPA, and it's my privilege to invite Pernille Fenger to give us her take. And we know that we need to put the older person's right at the center of our activities. However, what does it take? Is it possible that the level of a fund such as the UNFPA What does it take and what is the UNFPA doing for this? Bernie.
Thank you very much, Alejandro, for this question. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues. Let me first echo what has already been said a number of times. Older people's rights are systematically denied in all societies. Ageism is a global issue. It's prevalent in every social, economic, ethnic, geographical sphere, and in different contexts, including the workplace, media, healthcare, and in the public discourse. Older persons, they face multiple and intersecting problems, as also highlighted by my good colleague from WHO. And that is basically due to poverty, gender, living with disabilities, or belonging to a minority group that just exacerbate their situation. And states are obliged to respect, protect, and fulfill their rights, as it's been also pointed. And they do that by adopting policies in partnership with older persons' organizations with deliberate actions and investments aiming at the full realization of their rights. And we need to empower older persons through investing in an active and healthy aging throughout the life course at all levels, including social security, healthcare services, palliative care, it was also highlighted, housing and infrastructure. And how do we, as you are asking, Alejandro, how do we make a society that accommodates a society freer from ageism? And let me highlight a couple of areas where UNFPA is working. First of all, we need data. UNFPA is co-leading the data stream of the UN Decade of Healthy Aging, and the focus is especially on producing census-based briefs on the status of older persons. These censuses inform us about health, living conditions, and access to essential services, and that is our starting point. In addition to that, we have analyzed for the past years different waves of the World Values Survey that has for more than 40 years been at the forefront exploring values, beliefs, and attitudes that shape societies, including attitudes towards older persons. And what we see in those surveys is that negative attitudes towards older persons are pervasive and stand in the way of their full and productive integration in society. And this contributes to the baseline on which we can assess how older people are doing and to support countries in terms of tracking their commitments. The other area where UNFPA is focusing is on providing technical support in the formulation of strategies, policies, and programs. And of course, that we do together with our sister agencies, and where we address population aging, population decline, low fertility, and also migration. And to this end, we promote healthy and active aging, for example, through support of healthy aging centers. And in Southeast Asia, we're working to make these centers much more intergenerational, as we're moving away from the idea of creating just spaces for older people. We are now looking at more places where where people would also benefit from childcare, where older persons might be cooking for parents, and where essentially everyone benefit. And these programs we are doing under the umbrella of the Demographic Resilience Program. Well, the international community has invested resources and efforts for years to assess the level of recognition of older persons in existing international instruments, as has been highlighted before. And of course, whether to have an international convention or not, we as UNFPA are in the hands of member states. But we do need to ask ourselves a critical question. Are existing accountability and redress mechanisms working for older people? I started out by stating that older people's rights need to be respected, protected, and fulfilled. However, when we look at international human rights accountability mechanisms, such as the Universal Periodic Review, UPR, the level of attention given by member states to older persons' rights is meager. If we compare that to the attention given to other age population groups, we see a difference.
There are many factors explaining this limited attention to older people's rights and the outcomes of human rights mechanisms. Yet, we find it's legitimate to ask ourselves if having a dedicated international instrument recognizing the specific rights of older persons would indeed contribute to a priority attention, as it's already happening with other population groups whose specific rights are internationally recognized. I thank you and wish you all a happy International Day of Older Persons.
Thank you very much, Berlin, for providing additional scientific evidence of something of the problem that we're facing. And I think that unfortunately, the solution and the answers to the problem are not easy to design. And there are multiple factors that have an impact. And one of the factors that we have been discussing is from the essence, from the family. Are we expected that international policies and legally binding instruments will change that perception? Possibly, yes, but we have to start with the family. In most families, we don't talk about getting old. Older people are the others. And in college, at universities, if you are economist, in the final demand, where there's any way in any course, in any curriculum, anything about the consumption, the final demand of older people? In business schools, the business of providing or responding to the demand of older people? No, it's non-existent. So I think the responses to these scientific facts are really very important, and the participation of older people, it's really crucial. Talking about that, and now it's my privilege to invite Silvia Perez-Levin, who is possibly one of the best known persons addressing issues of older people and the more knowledgeable in the issue. She has been working on this for many years, and she's the responsible of me being here in this committee. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alejandro, and thank you all for being here. I will speak about the meaningful participation of civil society and of older persons. Nothing about us without us is not just a slogan. We cannot meaningfully discuss human rights of older persons without the meaningful engagement of older persons and organizations that represent us. Meaningful participation is a continuum. It is not a one-off. One of the reasons that the open-ended working group on aging in New York could not achieve more than it has in its long 15 years of life was because our voices were limited to delivering statements at the session. We were neither consulted nor included in negotiations on the decisions that concerned us. This needs to change. But in fact, in Geneva, we already have been actively engaging in the Council and with other organizations, several present here, beyond written or oral statements. We do participate in informal negotiations on resolutions, contribute language, and work collaboratively with delegations of member states. Our participation is welcome and valued, or so we think, or we hope. Despite shrinking of the space that civil society experiences at the UN and elsewhere, we stand firm in claiming our space at the Human Rights Council as we do as older persons in society. We know that older persons play multiple and crucial roles in their families and communities. We are, or can be, full agents. However, multiple barriers limit the extent of our participation. Often these barriers are bureaucratic or institutional, or due to the lack of information by older persons on how processes work. But we also know, as it was said before, that ageism and discrimination are at the source, and we need to challenge them in law and practice. Older persons and organizations that represent us want to be full partners in the decisions that concern us directly and also indirectly, as all that happens in our countries and the world affect us all. We are an integral part of society, and we have the right to fully participate in cultural, economic, civil, and political life. Our human rights do not expire. We heard the call for legally binding instrument. A convention will assist governments to respect, protect, and fulfill our rights. It will guide governments to implement the Madrid International Plan of Action and design any future update that is fully human rights based. Report regularly to a follow-up mechanism and be accountable. It will raise awareness of all sectors of society and all generations that we all have the same rights and that we should all age free of discrimination. We need a solid legal foundation to end systemic ageism. And while everyone is talking about future generations and the pact for the future, the older persons of today should not be ignored. We want to see a convention be adopted in our lifetime. And we are willing and ready to work with member states, national human rights institutions, and all stakeholders to make it happen here at the Council and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Celia, for reminding us that the role that NGOs and older persons themselves can play and should play and be consulted. Now, before opening the floor for a few questions from the floor, I would like to give the floor, and it's my privilege to give the floor to His Excellency, the Ambassador, Mr. Héctor Virgilio Alcántara, Permanent Representative of the Dominican Republic to the United Nations Office at Geneva. And as you know, the Dominican Republic has played a very important role in human rights and in UN activities historically. So, and you chaired a very important side event a few days ago, organized by the Global Alliance on the Rights of Older People. Please, Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, moderator. I a little bit dysphonic today. I have to make a confession first. I'm very happy. I'm very happy because appreciating for the big crowd present here, the cause for older person is gaining, as physicists say, a critical mass. The first thing I would like to say is that's a great honor to have been given the opportunity to speak at this event that commemorates the 33rd anniversary of the first celebration of the International Day of Older Persons. It is a great honor because perhaps I am the only one of the participants here who can say that I was witness at the creation. I was there when the United Nations General Assembly passed the resolution establishing that day. And I was there during his first commemoration. Next, I would like to give an explanation why. In my extensive diplomatic career, I have the fortune and privilege of working alongside the promoter of that resolution, the Dominican Julia Alvarez, world-renowned as Ambassador of the Aging. During the 3 years that we were part of the same team in the Dominican mission to the United Nations in New York, I was able to appreciate her energetic and passionate dedication to highlighting the importance of older persons in our societies. At the time when Ambassador Alvarez advocated for the recognition of older persons, her emphasis were twofold. Focus attention on the potential as well as the need of that age group
particularly women from the underdeveloped world. She characterized her effort within the United Nations by saying that her goal was to replace the stereotype of a helpless and pitiful old age with a more realistic picture, that of persons who still have much to give and to enrich societies. In 1990, her effort was instrumental in having the United Nations establish October 1st as International Day of Older Persons. And then in 1999, declare the International Year of Older Persons. Later, she became the driving force behind the Second Assembly on Aging in 2002 and the document that came out of it, the Political Declaration and the Madrid International Plan of Action on Aging. On October 6, 2011, the United Nations awarded Ambassador Alvarez a lifetime award for being a pioneer for global aging and a tireless champion of equality. Those of us who continue her legacy are now asserting the need to create a binding international instrument that effectively responds to the protection of the right of older persons and their specific need. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, and we're happy that you reminded us all the very important events that you were. Now you can add that you were here today. Today.
I'm a living example.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. So now we have a few minutes before we're kicked out of the room. So if there is any question that you would like to ask, please present yourself and tell us if you address your particular question to someone particular.
I live mine of the One Goal Initiative for Governance. I have one question and one suggestion. Actually, I have a lot more, but I'll come to you afterwards. So the question is, you mentioned legally binding instrument, but you also mentioned a standard. So which is it going to be? And the suggestion is when we think about the productivity of older people, we may want to put forth rather than, practical things like, I don't know, cooking or cleaning. We might want to think about providing wisdom for the others. Yeah, thank you.
I wonder if, Kari, if you would like to mention something before we take the next.
Well, the only thing I can say, I tried in my intervention to say what specific issues should be covered. But there's a whole area that one should really explore. We're not, as far as I can see, talking about an instrument which would be simply for people who are out of active life. That's a totally different issue. It's important to see that we're talking about an instrument that would facilitate life for people basically throughout their lives, but with the specific issue of aging, focusing on that. But you probably would need to do quite a lot of preparatory work, and this was why I said that it's important that somebody puts something down as a proposal and so that a discussion can take place.
Can I
Thank you very much. Silvia, you would like to add something?
Complement a bit before Richard asks a question. A human rights legally binding instrument does create human rights standards. So there is no contradiction, does create minimum, at least minimum standards that creating human rights obligations that member states need to implement. And we are not only talking about the right to be productive or active, it's also those who cannot be actively involved or cannot work anymore or don't want to work anymore or don't want to act, they also have a right to receive the adequate standard of living, a dignified life, and the right to care and support. So we are talking about being able to age with dignity, with rights throughout your life. And about the wisdom, I would like to say a word. Like the independent expert said, the older we are, the more diverse we are. So not every older person is wise. Like not everybody is, every child is this, I mean, not everyone is the same. So I will not highlight the wisdom. Yes, we have experience to share. We have a lot of life experience to share, but let's not put older persons all in one box, neither wise, nor active, nor productive, nor sick. Okay, it's the diversity, it's the heterogeneity that characterizes us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Silvia. Please.
Hi, I'm Stacy Dry-Lara with Graduate Women International, and I'd like to thank all the panelists. It's been very enjoyable and also enlightening. I just have two things. One, when we move forward with the legally binding instrument, I would really like you to, for this day, to be on the record of asking for your support for the inclusion of civil society in that agreement. We've had the Summit of the Future recently, and being part of that pact was mentioned a lot. However, in the final result, there was a lack of the civil society, and it was geared a lot towards member states and private sector. So, and also for that, I'd like to just say that we would, as Graduate Women International, like to see a lot in the legally binding about lifelong learning. That's part of our mission. Learning doesn't stop when you're youth or when you're in your 30s or 40s, but there is a lifelong learning. So I just wanted to say that, and thank you once again, and thank you for the floor.
Thank you very much. Moldova, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Ambassador of Moldova. Thank you very much for the interesting discussion and presentation impressions. And it looks like momentum is building indeed for discussing the instrument. Moldova is a country who just recently has adopted a program on healthy aging with the support of UNFPA. It's also, I mean, supporting the idea. May I ask perhaps ambassadors of Slovenia and Argentina, maybe others as well, how do you see the preparatory steps before reaching to discussion on the convention? If somebody drafts it, that would start a discussion. Before getting to that moment, perhaps there are also maybe some additional steps needed here in Geneva and the Human Rights Council. This event is one of them for sure. How do you see further steps to approach the moment? Thank you.
For the very concrete question, would you like to intervene?
Thank you very much for putting us on the spot. Obviously, we need to have a very strong political support of all stakeholders here present and others that are not with us. And that's why we are happy to engage so intensively with the civil society, with the UN organizations and other stakeholders that need to be a part of this process. We have been working, as the ambassador of Argentina has explained, we have been working for years within the Human Rights Council to build this momentum. And now that the open-ended working group, after 14 years of deliberations where the legal lacunes exist, what could be done, how should be done, after 14 years of discussions in New York, you know that Geneva is the place for action. So we will as members of the group of friends and the core group of countries on the rights of older persons, together with all stakeholders, now after this Human Rights Council come up with the best way to go forward. It has been incremental until now, and it will continue to be so, because we really want the process to be done right. Yeah.
Thank you, Ambassador.
Thank you very much for the question, because I think that very appropriate and it's an excellent opportunity, because for 14 years been profound deliberations about this issue, and well, they discovered that the specialized organizations are in Geneva, and as you could see, as we all see, that in New York there are generic discussions, general arguments about many issues, but when the time comes that you really have to study, you really have to work on details and develop a specific matters, I mean, they have to come to Geneva. So it's a new start. I think that we are receiving this in a welcome way, and we are ready to get involved with, as Anita said clearly, that we need the support of everybody. This is not a work or a job that one person can actually do or one country can do. This is a common task, and we must be all on board. And I think that this is an excellent opportunity to reinitiate a common task, and this is an excellent opportunity to express this and convoke everybody to go on board and navigate all together with this common objective. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. We are running out of time. We have 3.5 minutes. Yes, please, Ambassador.
Yes, I just want to add some elements, because I totally agree that this is the momentum in Geneva. We received the expert on the group. She's convinced that the instrument should be development, and she worked in scientific evidence. We have the recommendation of intergovernmental working group. We have 14 years of experience. We have an excellent group of ambassadors here as well. And we have excellent examples as well of as the Convention of Persons with Disabilities. This is a very good example of successful of protecting a specific group, and the standards are not totally different from the older person. So we have so many experience in the United Nations environment here in Geneva. We have ILO as a very good agency to protect any rights. So I think we need a political will as well. I mean, but the elements are around. So it could be a very good momentum. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Indeed, there's a very important and active group of ambassadors here in Geneva. And as the ambassador of Argentina mentioned, and sometimes Geneva is perceived as the kitchen and New York as the dining room. And I think that now we have the kitchen and the dining room, the tools and the actors here in Geneva. We have everything, and we have to seize the momentum. We opened this long session. Thank you really very much for staying here so long, for the panelists and for the public, with the intervention of the Office of the High Commissioner himself. And I wonder if There's still a representative of the Office of the High Commissioner here. Chitra. If not, well, I think there's a momentum. Is she? There she is. Chita, if you would like to say some closing words in 2 minutes.
Good afternoon, everybody.
She is the head of the new unit of the Office of the High Commissioner on older people. Chitra Masay.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. It's been wonderful to see all of you here and to hear all the support for a dedicated, legally binding instrument, whatever shape and format, which is going to be the privilege of all the member states working in Geneva and New York to decide what shape and format it's going to take. As the High Commissioner said in his opening remarks, we, the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, are on standby, waiting to see how we can support each and every part of that process moving forward. It's certainly not going to be a straightforward path from A to B. There's going to be plenty of, I don't know whether it's going to be foxtrot or tango, or something more complicated in terms of the way we are all going to be dancing to it. But I think what is wonderfully clear after 14 years of deliberations and discussions and having over 1,000 documents submitted and stored, very clearly lining out to us that the current legal framework is inadequate, that there are new and emerging issues that necessitate speedy and fast action. And what is ultimately important after going through the Act of the Future and the recent deliberations is that the intergenerational aspect of it has been very beautifully captured. I was part of at least 2 side events which were led by youth organizations that focused on the fact that there was a need for intergenerational solidarity, that whatever benefited the older people of today would eventually benefit the older people of tomorrow. That message came through very clearly. So I think that, as all of you have pointed out, the momentum is there, the opportunity is there, and actually we've been celebrating a lot in the last few days on different aspects of it, but the real work starts now. And I think we are in good hands with the core group and the group of friends and all of the other leadership within Geneva, both from civil society, from the different UN agencies. I'm so delighted to see my colleagues from different agencies that we've been working together here, supporting the work that is needed going forward. All I would like to say is thank you very much. As the High Commissioner said, we are here ready to support you. Very happy to meet you and answer more questions in detail, in depth on certain aspects, whether it is the development of the international legal framework or it is specific aspects of a report that may have come from within the UN family. The UN family is standing together on this, whether it is WHO, UNFPA, UNHCR, IOM, we are all working on this. I hope that you're all also aware that there is an interagency working group, which includes 35 different UN agencies and specialized agencies that are focused on seeing how they can support this new process as it goes forward. It's going to be quite a lot of work, but we're all in it together. So I'm assuming that this is going to be a good step forward. And thank you all very much for your interest and your time and being here from the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. A very big thank you to the organizers and for giving us the opportunity to take the floor and speak with you. Thank you. Back to you, Alejandro.
Those who participated online. And I would like to thank the interpreters for their work, the technicians that work here, the NGO liaison unit again for their support. And I would like to recognize the youngest participant of this session, Patrick, who was desperately putting a 2-minute sign to all the panelists, but they were so disciplined that nobody went over the time. So thank you very much, Patrick, anyway. And thank you all. And I hope this is not the last time we meet. This was my first as member of the NGO Committee on Aging, but I think we will have hard and productive work. Thank you and good evening to everyone.